frequency is the amount of cycles in 1 second. The frequency of the American power is 60 cycles. What is the meaning of that? In American power, I have 60 cycles in 1 second. In European power, I have 50 cycles in 1 second. And we are going to study in other episodes the formula to calculate the frequency. Frequency is equal to the number of poles times the RPMs divided by 120. Those are the number of poles. In this particular case, this alternator have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14 poles. This alternator have 14 poles. There are other alternators with 4 poles, with 6 poles, with 2 poles. The majority of the generators, 99% of the generators, they have 4 poles on the rotor. For that reason, if I have 4 poles in the rotor, 4 poles in the rotor, in order to get 60 Hertz for American power, 60 cycles, each cycle is 1 Hertz. In order to get 60 Hertz, I need 1800 RPMs. The AC motors work with similar principle, but electromagnets in a rotor and permanent magnets on the stator or vice versa. But those magnets depend of the electromagnetic force produced for the current. The AC motors are divided in single-phase motor, double-phase, and three-phase motors. The people have too much question about what motor is more efficient, the single-phase motor in comparison with the double-phase or the three-phase motor. If you have a motor, electric motor, single-phase, the consumption in amps to move the shaft of the motor is too much. If you have a motor with double phase, is better. If you have a motor with three phase, the consumption in amps is less. For that reason, the people say if you replace your old appliance single phase for new appliance double phase or three phase, the consumption in amps reduce dramatically, and the bill, the monthly bill will be less for you every month. This is the example. This motor is a single phase motor, and this is the capacitor. The capacitor used it only at the beginning to jump, to produce an extra voltage in order to start the motor. All the single phase motor, AC motors, they have an start capacitor, and the capacitor is used only to start. What is the symptom when the start capacitor in a motor is damaged? The symptom is that the motor is humming and it's difficult to start the motor. Probably if you held with your hand on the pulley, the motor continue running. If you remove the cover and you check the capacitor, probably the capacitor is exploded, or the capacitor is too hot, or the capacitor expand because the capacitor is damaged. If the capacity is lower or superior than the range of the label, you need to replace the capacitor for other one exactly the same. Never less. A little more probably, but never less. I recommend replace the capacitor for other one with exactly the same characteristics. Once again, you check the capacitor is damaged, you replace for the new one, and right now you can connect the capacitor again, and you put the cover, and right now your single phase motor is perfect. Three-phase reverse rotation. The properly way to reverse rotation in a three-phase motor is by means of contactors. The contactor is basically a breaker, the three-phase breakers, with a couple of inputs for the signal. The signal should be AC or DC. For example, this is not properly a contactor, but it's exactly the same. It's a breaker, a three-phase breaker, with two inputs on the side for the signal. What is the function of the signal? open and close the breaker. Open and close the breaker. Where is coming that signal? It's a remote signal. That signal, once again, is coming from the flybridge, from the pilot helm, and that signal could be DC signal or AC signal, low current signal. If you check the schematic, I have the main breaker. That's the main breaker that you have in your AC panel. And this is the AC power. The AC power is coming from the source of the power, 3 phases. And this is the output of the main breaker. The output of the main breaker enters in a couple of contactors. I have 2 contactors here, 3 inputs, 3 outputs, 3 inputs, 3 outputs. Okay, the first contactor is for clockwise rotation, and the second contactor probably for counterclock. Okay, the first contactor have 3 inputs: black, red, and blue. The black one, the first position of the first contactor is connected with the first position of the second contactor. Black with black in first position. The second one, the red one, in the first contactor goes into the third one in the second contactor. And the third one in the first contactor go into the second one in the second contactor. That's the switch. I am going to switch the phase 2 and the phase 3 in the second contactor. Okay, and the output is exactly the same. 1 with 1, 2 with 2, and 3 with 3. And the phase number 1 is the black one. The phase number 2 should be the red one. And the phase number 3 is the blue one. Those are the phases that enter in the motor in order to reverse the rotation. When I press this button, I activate the clockwise contactor. When I press the second push buttons, I activate the counterclock contactor. This is the procedure to use contactors.